Hey everybody, this is episode number 195 of the End of Life University podcast, where we share real talk about life and death. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Wyatt, and in just a moment, I'll be sharing with you a solo episode on why death is life's best kept secret. And this is part 8 of the Mortal Wisdom series. I'll explain more about that in just a moment. But before we get to that content, I want to quickly thank my latest supporters on Patreon, Jennifer Turner, Laura Sodders, and Tom Johnson Medland. Thank you so much for stepping up. And if you stay tuned after the content of this episode, I'll come back with a few announcements and I'll also explain a little bit more about what Patreon is. But for now, I'd like to get right into today's featured content. So here we go. Today, I'm sharing with you part 8, the final part of the Mortal Wisdom series, which I've been offering since early February of this year. So today we're covering kind of a summary and a recap of the previous 7 sessions, and I'm titling it "Why Death is Life's Best Kept Secret," and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to start with a story again. I've been telling you lots of stories during this series, particularly from my own life, that give you a little bit of insight into who I am and what has inspired me over the years. And you might remember back in the episode I did when talking about love and the Love Project, I mentioned how I had a friend die when I was 16, and that really began my own inspiration into looking at love as the purpose for my life. And so starting at age 16, I became aware of this idea that I have both an inner and an outer purpose, and that my inner purpose was to learn about love. So that became a search that has really guided me for most of my life, learning how to love, how to both give and receive love, how to deepen and broaden my own capacity to share love. But in addition, I mentioned this came about because of the death of my friend. So at the same time, I began contemplating death and the fact that we are all mortal and we will all die, and we could die at any time. A few years later in college, I took a course in Native American studies, and we read several excellent books. We read Black Elk Speaks by John Neihart. We read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by Dee Brown, and watched a lot of movies together. And that's when I really became familiar with Native American culture and beliefs, which I hadn't really understood before. And one phrase that came to me, and I'm not sure where I first read it or heard it, was this phrase: "Today is a good day to die." The moment I heard that, it was like an epiphany for me. Again, somewhat like the epiphany I had about love, but the idea that any single day of my life might be the day that I die, and that I really want to live my life so that if I die today, this is a good day to die. I want to be ready and prepared for death whenever it comes. That was a really startling revelation to me, but it all made sense, and it took away some of the anxiety and worry I had had about death after my friend Jolene died at age 16, because I realized as long as I view it this way, that every day is a good day to die, today might be the day I die, I could make sure that I'm always ready for death whenever it comes. And I did a little bit of research because I was curious about where I might have read that phrase, "Today is a good day to die." And it looks like perhaps in Black Elk Speaks, that might have been mentioned in that book, though I couldn't find a definite quote or attribution for that book, but I saw that this phrase has been attributed both to Crazy Horse and to Low Dog, who were members of the Lakota Sioux tribe. And some experts think that it may have come from just a translation or a misinterpretation of a common Sioux battle cry, which means "I am ready for whatever comes." So that warriors, as they set off in battle, would shout this phrase, Naka Nula Waun. I'm ready for whatever comes in. I'm so sorry. I know I butchered that pronunciation. But at any rate, today's a good day to die, and I'm ready for whatever comes. Those two fit together for me very well. And I would say have been some of the driving wisdom in my life to make sure that I'm always ready and always prepared, and that I'm always living every day in such a way that I would not feel bad if my life ended today. I would not be full of regret or think, oh my gosh, why did it happen then? Why was I doing that on my last day of life? So that every day I could make the best and highest possible choice for myself. And then at that same time, another phrase came to me, and this I know for sure came from one of the Billy Jack movies, which were popular back then. I remember watching them when I was in college. And I remember Billy Jack, the character in that movie, saying, I keep death always on my shoulder. That was another piece of wisdom for me, because he talked about how death can advise you about life if you keep death next to you and very close to you at all times. And so that added to this understanding of mine that I might die today at any time. Today is a good day to die. I want to be ready for that if it happens, but then also viewing death as a companion that goes with me wherever I go, and that adds a perspective to everything that I do. And so this really kind of filled out for me in my youth, my younger days, in my 20s, my relationship and experience with death and how I began to think about death for myself as part of my own life. And so I remember this concept of carrying death always with me, always on my shoulder, and asking my death as I would go from one experience to another, like, oh no, I got a worse grade on this exam than I thought I would get. And asking my death, does that matter? And hearing the answer, no. Your death will tell you, no, that doesn't matter at all. That's not important. So I began to have this sense that death itself is like a wise advisor or a teacher that we can use to tell us about life and also to give us perspective on everything that happens in life, to help us stay calm, to help us stay in the moment, and to help us remember not to get overwhelmed or carried away with the small things that happen in life, which appear to be huge. But if we ask death, we will be told no. Most of the things we worry about and get upset about are actually very small. So I use these phrases: today's a good day to die, I'm ready for whatever comes, and I keep death on my shoulder. Those three things I began to contemplate and began to carry around with me in my 20s. You've also heard in my story, when I was in my mid-30s, my father died of suicide. And I have mentioned a few times in the past that his suicide death really upended everything for me in my life. So that included all this wisdom I'd been gathering about love and about death, because I had not yet experienced the depths of grief and loss in my life. And no matter how much I was preparing for myself to die and how much I was focusing on love and living life what I considered from the best and highest place, none of that actually prepared me for the pain I would feel when my father died by suicide, the grief and the guilt that I would feel. So it's quite interesting when I say at an early age, I had adopted some higher spiritual principles about life and death and love. And yet my father's suicide really ripped all of that to shreds. And I found myself in the years after his death having to put all the pieces back together again. Now, where I am now in my life, I can look back and see the perfection in all of it. And that many times what we learn in our youth it's partial because we're looking at it from really a paucity of experience with life. And so when we learn something in our youth, we may latch a hold of it tightly and think that this is it. I now know everything that I need to know. I have all of this wisdom. I have all these tools. We may feel overly confident in how much we know. And sometimes we're asked to give that up and to lose everything that we've already learned so that we can relearn it from a new perspective. And I feel like that's what happened to me after my dad's death. It shredded everything I had already built up. It completely pulled the rug out from under me and left me with no footing whatsoever and having to start over again. Although I would say the work I had done when I was younger and the understanding I had reached, I'm sure, played a role in my process of recovery and my process of healing through grief and relearning some of those lessons, because I had already carried them with me for so many years before my dad died. I'm sure they played a huge factor in how I was able to put the pieces back together again. And then also, I would say, still inform me. And in thinking about it, my tagline at the end of this podcast is always face your fear, be ready for whatever comes your way. And when I reread this translation of the Sioux battle cry that says, I'm ready for whatever comes, I realized, oh my gosh, like I knew that when I was in college. And isn't that interesting? I'd never put that together, that I am still informed by the wisdom I gathered at that young age, although it has been tempered in many ways by the fires of suffering and loss and pain. And so that bright, shiny, young, new wisdom that you learn when you're in your 20s sometimes has to get beaten down and melted in the fire in order to become the deeper, burnished wisdom that we have in our later years of life. And that's what I feel happened for me with those beliefs that I adopted at an early age. Yet here they are, still with me. I still think of it almost every day. Today is a good day to die. I'm ready for whatever comes, and I keep death always on my shoulder. So I wanted to start today's conversation by just talking a little bit about those ideas as an affirmation and really as a foundation for how each one of us might need to live our lives every day in these mortal bodies where we find ourselves, in these bodies that are just human and will definitely one day age and become ill and die. So I think it's really important that we have a philosophy and a perspective on life that can help us cope with the challenges that come as part of being a mortal. And that's really what this whole Mortal Wisdom series has been about. First of all, learning from our mortality, whatever we can, keeping death on our shoulder to ask us, what do we need to know in order to get through life? But also knowing how to live our lives on a day-to-day basis so that every day is a good day to die, so that any day when death arrives for us, we are ready for it to come and we feel prepared to let go and to allow that to unfold. So I want to briefly go back through these 7 lessons of the 7 previous episodes that we've been talking about and just retrace them a little bit. We started back in February with the lesson of impermanence, the idea that nothing lasts and everything changes. And I think one of the key takeaways from the lesson of impermanence is this too shall pass. And remembering that everything changes. And that means when we're in the middle of something amazing and wonderful happening, to always carry with us the knowledge that this doesn't last forever. So enjoy it right now. This won't be here. This feeling won't be here forever. Make the most of it. And when we're in the midst of suffering and pain, to also hold on by remembering this too shall pass. Everything passes ultimately. everything changes and nothing lasts. And so I think this lesson of impermanence can really help us begin to see life as transient, life as fleeting. All of our joys are also transient and fleeting, all the pleasures of life, but all the pain and the sorrow of life as well is transient and fleeting and will go. So we need to put ourselves in a proper frame of mind where we're constantly opening our hands in a way and allowing the sands of life to slip through, allowing time to move past us and allowing ourselves to move through time and space without clinging and without holding on, and beginning to appreciate the gift that impermanence brings to our life. That when we know that nothing lasts forever, we can really focus in and enjoy it in the here and now, in this present moment. And that's really the gift of impermanence. The next lesson that we talked about was the lesson of surrender and the importance of being able to let go of what we thought should happen, because sometimes the thing that trips us up most in life, that makes us most miserable with life, is that we have had a certain expectation of how things might be or should be. And our greatest pain arises when the things we thought should happen or we wanted to happen don't happen. And sometimes we have a hard time getting over that. And so I think the lesson of surrender is really teaching us that we have to let go of all of our expectations and how we thought it was going to work out, what we thought might happen, as painful as it is, as awful as it is sometimes. I mean, if you're a parent, it's normal and natural to expect that you will see your child grow up and that your child will outlive you. And yet it doesn't always happen. And that is one of the most horrific, tragic losses to have to suffer, to have a child that you realistically expected to see grow to adulthood die. And so that's probably the greatest surrender that we're asked to accomplish in our lives, is to be able to let go of the people that we love, even when our expectation was that they would travel with us on this road throughout our lives. It isn't always going to work out that way. And so this lesson of surrender is powerful and deep and difficult, but one that's so very important, because if we don't learn to let go of those expectations, we can keep ourselves buried in a dark pit of pain. And we can also create even more misery around the pain and the suffering that life is already offering to us. So I feel that life is it's a continual process of learning how to let go of one expectation after another. And it really comes to us every day. We have new opportunities to learn to let go every single day. The next lesson that we looked at is the lesson of purpose. And I talked, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, about having both an inner purpose and an outer purpose, and told the story of discovering my own inner purpose to be learning about love in this lifetime, but that our outer purpose is really the choice that we make of what career path to follow, or what type of education do we want to receive, or what work we want to do on a day-to-day basis in our lives. And that our inner and outer purposes are equally important, but we need to be aware of both purposes. And when we can bring them into alignment with one another, that's when we'll find the most ease and flow, and also the most meaning in the day-to-day work that we do. So I talked about one exercise in terms of finding an outer purpose, which is looking at 4 areas. This came from the Japanese concept of ikigai, and looking at 4 areas: what you love doing, what you're good at doing, what you can be paid for doing, and what the world needs right now. And it's finding the intersection of those 4 areas that is your ikigai, or your ideal outer purpose, the ideal path for you to follow. And then I also talked a little bit about if you're wondering what your inner purpose might be. One of the ways to find your inner purpose is to think about where have you had the most pain and suffering in your life, because it's possible that life itself is directing you toward your inner purpose through the difficulties and the challenges that you've been given in life. So that's something to contemplate as you're thinking about your own inner purpose. And next, we talked about presence and the ability to live in the present moment, to just be right here, right now, as much as possible, because it's in the present moment that we can experience joy and love and miracles. And nothing else really exists. The past is over and done. The future hasn't arrived yet. The present moment is the only thing that's real to us right now. And so this is the challenge of learning how to utilize our thoughts and our minds to come fully into this moment, this present moment, so that we can take everything in around us, savor it, and enjoy it as much as possible. And I think this is really one of the keys. I would say for me, this is one of the most important lessons I've learned from death. One of the greatest secrets that death has taught me is the more I'm here in the present moment, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm going for a walk or doing the dishes or cleaning the toilet, the more I'm fully present and focused on what I'm doing and simply noticing everything around me, the more every single experience I have brings me deeper meaning and brings me a sense of fulfillment and joy in life. And so, yes, of course, being present with those mundane day-to-day tasks, but also being present with the people we love. That's even more powerful, to think about how we can deepen our relationships when we can fully attend to what our loved one is saying, when we're listening with our entire being and not one molecule of us is distracted or focused somewhere. We're fully attending to our loved one and what they're talking about and what they're communicating to us. That's extremely powerful, and we can make great changes in our relationships, but we can also transform one another when we learn how to be present for one another. And that lesson came through to me over and over again. First, as I observed my dying patients in hospice, and I saw how many of them really were astonishingly able to enjoy the present moment, and partly because they knew, as the gift of their own mortality, that this moment will never happen again, and that they had a limited number of these moments to experience. And that knowledge helped them so much to very quickly learn how to be present and how to fully engage in the present moment. And so observing my patients is one thing that taught me about the importance of being in the present moment. And then learning how to be with someone who's dying became part of the practice for me of experiencing presence for myself, learning how to be still and quiet and how to listen and how to sit with someone who's dying. It was a powerful, powerful opportunity to expand my own skills and my own ability to be present. This is something all of us need to work on. And I would say those of us who work with the dying have an incredible opportunity to learn it on the job. And it's a necessity to do our jobs well, and it's also the perfect training ground to learn it. But for others who don't work with the dying, it's equally important for you to learn to be present in your life right now in this moment on a day-to-day basis in order to fill your life with meaning and rich experiences. And so you may not have this opportunity to be with dying patients as a way of practicing presence, but it's really important for you to seek it out elsewhere in your life and to make it an intention on a day-to-day basis to work on being more fully present in your life. The next lesson that we learned about was the lesson of forgiveness and how to let go of our outrage over things that are not going the way we want them to, things that upset us and that disrupt and disturb our day. And way beyond that, how to let go of the resentments and pain and difficulties of the past that we might still be clinging to, that might still be taking our energy away from us. And so I talked about the importance of having a daily practice of forgiveness and really working every day on trying to let go of whatever happens during the day that you've carried around with you that has upset you or caused you to have negative feelings, trying to learn how to let go of that. I think this is a place where carrying death on your shoulder can be really helpful as well, because you can ask your death, the fact that this person cut you off in traffic, is that really important? And your death will most likely tell you, no, let go of that. Don't carry that around. You have many more things you can focus on when you're being present during the day. Don't carry around small things that, relative to your death, don't matter very much. And so that's the importance of learning forgiveness. And again, something I learned from patients at the end of life who were dying, who told me how important it was to them to let go of all of the old resentments and anger that they'd been carrying with them, sometimes for most of their lives. So my dying patients taught me well that forgiveness is worthy of our time on a day-to-day basis as well. The next lesson that we looked at is the lesson of love and how to expand our capacity to carry love for others and for ourselves. First of all, how to feel loved and supported, how to take in really the divine love of creation, in a way, the life force and life energy of creation, so that we can fill ourselves with it and feel love for ourselves and forgive ourselves for our flaws and our inadequacies, and then become a vessel of love, being able to share love with others and carry it with us wherever we go, so that love becomes a tool that we can use to help transform other people, to help transform our relationships, to transform situations that we're involved in where there might be anger and negativity. The more we learn to be vessels of love, the more we can carry love into those situations and help bring about the highest good and the best possible outcome from those situations. And then in the last lesson, I talked a little bit about suffering and how we can learn from our suffering, and how sorrow also prepares us for joy by hollowing us out, in a sense, to increase that capacity for experiencing joy and for carrying more love. So I'm going to talk through just a little chain of these 7 lessons, and we'll start in the reverse order in which I presented them to you in this series, to start with suffering, which I believe is one of the key tasks of our lifetime, is to learn about the fact that we really are here on this planet to learn how to get through whatever suffering life offers to us. And it is how we negotiate the suffering of our lives that will really determine the quality of all of the rest of our experience in life. The better we're able to carry whatever difficulties have been given to us, the more space we will have to begin to explore love, to try to find love within those difficult situations. So first, we have to accept the fact that life brings us suffering and will, no matter what, and suffering is one of our teachers on this planet. So the more we stop resisting the suffering and embrace the fact that this is what life offers to us, the more ready and available we are to begin to find love in the midst of that suffering. We can begin to open our hearts to it. We can allow our pain and suffering to open us more, to break open our hearts, to hollow us out inside, so that we have a greater and greater capacity for love. the more we're able to love, the more we're able to be these channels and vessels for love, the more we will be called to practice forgiveness, the next lesson, because every person we love is going to, in some ways, hurt us or disappoint us. And every person we love will require forgiveness from us. And practicing love requires forgiveness. We can't grow in our ability and capacity to love until we learn how to forgive. We have to be able to let go of the things that disappoint us and hurt us in order to bring more love into those situations. So forgiveness is like a necessary companion to love. The more we work on love, the more we are required to practice forgiveness. They go hand in hand, and we will need to embrace both of those as we move forward and grow spiritually. Once we are able to forgive, which means we're letting go of old baggage and old wounds and hurts from the past, the greater our capacity is for love on the one hand, but also the greater our capacity is to be in the present moment. It's our old wounds that we keep alive in our memory that tie up a lot of our life force energy and that actually keep pulling us back to the past to relive something that happened years ago that we've never gotten over, that we still feel bad about. Those wounds suck us in and pull us out of the present moment and enjoying what's here right now, and pull us into the past to cause us to just rehash something, relive it, re-experience the negative emotions and the pain that happened in the past. Also, our anxiety about the future tends to pull us out of the present moment as well, and causes us to spend all of our time worrying and wondering about what might happen next week or what will happen after that, pulling us out of the present moment. So it's essential that we learn, for one thing, letting go of the past so that we can be here in the present. We can bring much more of our life force energy to each moment, and we bring our attention and our focus into the moment, which is where we will have the most impact in terms of bringing love to other people. If we're right here in the present moment, we can experience love, share it with others. We can also experience joy in this present moment. Also, within the present moment is where we will begin to discover our inner purpose, because our inner purpose is all about what we bring to each and every moment. And as soon as we have some kind of understanding of our inner purpose, it makes our outer purpose much easier to discern as well. Because as I mentioned before, understanding that my inner purpose was to learn about love, it made my pathway through medicine much clearer for me, because I understood that, yes, I'm learning about anatomy and physiology and pharmacology, all these tools that I'm going to need as a doctor. But the overriding principle of everything I'm learning is love. And so it helped me keep everything in place during that process of learning for my outer purpose of being a doctor. Knowing my inner purpose was love gave me the guidance that I needed to stay on the path and to learn exactly what I needed to learn in order to be the kind of doctor I was meant to be. So when we reach this point in the present moment where we're beginning to discover our purpose and really finding ourselves on a pathway that feels right, that begins to flow, that's also when we begin to practice surrender, because the more we're able to let go of our expectations and how we thought things should be, how we thought it would work out, what we've been clinging to about the past, the more fully we'll be engaged in our purpose, and the more easily things will flow for us. The less often we'll get tripped up by clinging to attachments and holding on to things and trying to keep things the way they were in the past. The more we will be able with ease to flow along this river of life and bring love to the world, fulfill our purpose, and flow with the grace and the ease of the present moment. So Surrender is that next step, learning to let go as we're moving along in this process. So again, we've embraced our suffering. We've allowed it to help us carry more love, which brings us to forgive more, which helps us be more fully in the present moment, which is where we discover our purpose, and then also figure out that we have to let go of everything we're expecting and attached to. And when we reach that point, suddenly we can look around us and not only recognize that everything is impermanent, nothing lasts and everything changes, but also for the first time begin to truly celebrate that fact. Celebrate the fact that we're mortal and that everything that has come to us is going to disappear at some point. And celebrate the fact that I'm right here, right now. I'm going to make the most of this very moment. It's also when we begin to embrace impermanence that we can go all the way back to the first lesson of suffering and look at it differently and view the fact that, oh, well, I thought my suffering was so serious and so severe and so terrible. But now that I see how life is fleeting and I'm just here for these brief moments, I'm just here for brief glimpses of the beauty and the love of life. I'm not going to let the suffering of life bring me down or drag me down. I'm going to figure out how I can carry that much more gracefully, because I know that it's not going to last forever either. I won't last forever, and neither will my suffering. I'm going to carry it gracefully so that I can live a life that is still full of joy and full of love and full of meaning. And I can find that in every single day, no matter what is happening for me. So that's how I see these 7 lessons playing out for us over and over again, this cycle of lessons that we keep working our way through. We get all the way to contemplating impermanence, and suddenly some new suffering happens in our life, and we start all over again, and we start working our way through these lessons and learning more about a different type of suffering and figuring out where we need to bring love into our lives again and what we need to forgive, how we can become more present and find our purpose and surrender, and again, embrace impermanence, embrace death as life's best kept secret, as actually the secret to having a beautiful, amazing life full of joy and full of miracles is being able to carry death with us at all times, keeping it on our shoulders, being willing to see that today's a good day to die. Today might be the day, I don't know, but it's a good day and it would be okay. And I'm ready for whatever happens, whatever life brings to me. I wanted to just mention another little metaphor, one we learned from the movie Forrest Gump, which is life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But I've been thinking lately, actually, life is much more like the cooking show Chopped. I don't know if you've seen it, but Chopped is a cooking competition where chefs are given this mystery box that has 4 ingredients in it, all very strange, unusual ingredients, and they have to use those ingredients to create a dish in the most creative way possible, whatever they can, some sort of a dish, and they get judged on their creativity. And so I think that life, more than being a box of chocolates where, you get to choose, you open the lid, you can choose one chocolate after another, and not all of them are our favorites, and not all of them are things we love, but we're pretty sure there will be some in there that we will love. I think life is more like the box of ingredients on Chopped. Each one of us comes here and we get a box of ingredients, and it's our job to make something out of those ingredients. Whatever it is we've been given that we have to work with, that's our raw material of life. And we don't really have a lot of choices about some of it. We can't really choose what's in our box. We opened it up and this is what we found. This is what life has brought to me today. Maybe I was born with a congenital defect. Maybe I was born with cerebral palsy. Maybe I developed cancer at a young age. Maybe I have diabetes or some chronic physical illness that I have to live with. That's one of the ingredients of my life. Maybe we had a parent die young. Maybe we were in foster care. Maybe we were unpopular and got bullied and teased by other people. Maybe we had other difficulties of life to cope with. Maybe we we had great beauty and talent, but we weren't able to find love or happiness in life. All of these are the ingredients, the raw material that we've been given in life that we have to work with. I think one of the keys is that we learn to appreciate our own box of ingredients. And one thing we have to stop doing is looking around at the ingredients other people got and comparing our box with theirs and saying, oh man, if only I'd gotten sweet potatoes like they got, I could do so much more with that. If only I had that. We have to learn how to appreciate what we've been given in our own box. And maybe, like the chef, we get grapefruit, mustard greens, black licorice, and marshmallow cream, say. And we have to make something of that. We have to create something, and it's supposed to be tasty and wonderful that we have to create out of those ingredients. And it might be that we absolutely hate black licorice. That's the worst possible thing we could imagine having in our box. We wish that we had something that someone else had been given, but the reality is we don't. We have the ingredients we've been given. And what we also have is our creativity, our experience, our ability to learn things and to gain knowledge. And when we focus on these ingredients that we've been given for life, we really are able to put them together in magical ways. We really are able to find ways through these challenges of our lives and make something beautiful and wonderful and delicious out of the ingredients that have come to us. That's our biggest challenge, really, is seeing, life is like our box. When we open it, it's a box of suffering. It's a box of pain. How do I make something beautiful of that? That's your challenge. That's what life gave you. That's your gift for this life, this box, whatever is in there, whatever pain and suffering or beauty and joy is in your box. It's all a gift. It's all a gift to you to challenge you and to maximize your talents and your abilities and your opportunity to grow and transcend by taking these raw ingredients and finding a way to utilize them so that you can grow into your best possible self and be the best person that you can be. So this is really the message behind my whole Mortal Wisdom series, is learn how to accept the ingredients of life that you're given. Don't compare them with other people, because everyone is given something different in their box. And as much as it might look like other people have it better than you do or got better ingredients than you do, they have other challenges as well that you don't know about, that you haven't seen and that you can't understand. And just know each one of us is on our journey. Every one of us is coping with something. Every one of us is trying to figure this out. Every one of us is just trying to do the best thing and put this together and make our way through this life. So remember to not compare your life with other people, because it brings you a lot of times jealousy or misery or dissatisfaction. Learn to focus on what you have. What gifts have you been given? What do you have to work with? And make the most of that, whatever it is. So here are some thoughts of what's really necessary to live this life as a mortal, knowing that you're going to die someday, including today might be your day to die. And in order to successfully carry death on your shoulder as your advisor. So these are just a few little tips that I have on a day-to-day basis for you to think about. First, that every day when you wake up, accept the idea that life is fleeting and you have no idea how much time there is. So wake up with that thought in mind that, I want today to be my best day ever, because I don't know how many days I have. I'm setting the intention right now as I get out of bed that today's a good day. This is going to be my best day. I think that's one of the keys to how we need to look at life as mortals. Wake up in the morning accepting, hey, this is fleeting, but I'm going to make this day be my best day. I have control over that. Things can happen to me. Things might go wrong, but I have control over my attitude and my outlook and my perspective. And I'm going to make today be a good day. Also accept from the outset, every day, know this: illness, loss, grief, and pain are a normal, necessary part of life. In fact, they are our teachers. They are actually our silent partners helping us make the most from our life. So do not run away from the difficulties that come to you. Do not run away from your pain and from your grief and from your loss. But learn to embrace it, learn to hold it and carry it with you in such a way that you allow it to shape you, allow it to change you, allow it to mold you into your best possible self. Allow death to be your teacher, because that is how you will have the deepest and most meaningful life. Next, it's important to discover what has meaning for you. What gives your life depth, richness, and joy? Really spend time thinking about that. Really spend time looking at those moments in life when you have felt outside of yourself in a way with joy and with love and with meaning, and really think about what takes you to that place, what helps you transcend the day-to-day mundane activities, and what helps you experience that joy. Figure it out, what is meaningful for you, because that is where you need to make sure you're putting time and energy. And it might be another person, a relationship, it might be an activity, it might be a belief, it might be a talent that you have and utilizing your talent, but figure it out for yourself. Understand what gives your life meaning and make sure that you're actually devoting time and energy to that meaningful activity, because I see it and hear it all the time. And a lot of times with hospice patients who say, the most important thing to me is really this person that I love. And yet I look back and realize I didn't spend enough time with that person. I neglected them. I didn't even go out of my way to spend time with that person. And I squandered so much of the time and energy that I had in my life. When I wish now I could go back and do it over, I would give my time and my energy and my love to that person. So really consciously think about what adds meaning to your life and figure out how you can incorporate more of that and give more of your time and energy to what gives you meaning. The next little piece of advice is to find love wherever you are. I can just tell you, whether or not you've identified love as something important to you in your life right now, the closer you get to death, the more love becomes important. And so I just want to offer you that. I talk about love a lot. And again, granted, I'm biased. That is what I've identified as something that has meaning for me. But keep it in mind. Remember that you may feel like you're okay without having a lot of love experiences in your life right now. And I'm not talking about romantic love or romantic relationships. I'm actually talking about heart-opening experiences where you feel touched by something else in this life, and it evokes a sense of deep love within you. And so that might be something like tending a garden or caring for a pet or walking on the beach at sunset. It might be other experiences that evoke that feeling of love within you. But make love part of your intentional practice every day, that you are seeking to experience love in your life, to share love and show love and learn about love. Add that to your daily practice. And at least a couple of times a day, stop and think about How am I loving? How am I carrying love today? And how could I give more love in my day to day? And how can I experience more love for myself today as well? And then the last one, which I've talked about a lot, is remembering to live in the present moment. So I just can't emphasize that enough, because really life consists of just one moment after another, all tied together by these threads that we're weaving. And so the more that you can bring your energy and attention into this present moment and just be fully here right now for whatever is happening, the more easily you'll find meaning, the more easily you'll share love, the more easily you can bear and carry your illness and pain. And the more you will embrace the fleeting nature of life and the impermanence of life. So those were my thoughts, my little summary here on the Mortal Wisdom series. And I hope that you found it useful and instructive. These are the ideas I've been really working on for my whole life, as I talked about how all these thoughts started coming to me at a young age. And I've been working on them in various ways and had them torn apart more than one time and had to rework my way through all of this. But I hope it's been useful and instructive to you. I share it from a place of humility and sincerity and integrity, and wanting to offer what I have learned to you in hopes that you might find it valuable in some way or another. So thanks for joining me on this little journey through mortal wisdom. All right. That's it. That's it for today's presentation. I'll just go back to a few announcements, although I kind of hate following up something sort of profound with just announcements. But I'm giving this a try for now, moving the announcements to the very end so that people can sign off who don't like listening to them. First of all, again, I'll remind you of the Beautiful Dying Expo in San Diego, November 2nd and 3rd, 2019. Go to beautifuldyingexpo.com to learn more about it. And it's still possible to sign up to be a presenter or a vendor and also an attendee. And we're hoping lots of people from all over the country will attend. It's going to be a very eclectic event with people from all different disciplines that have to do with death and dying. And so it's an exciting kind of first of its kind big expo to come around death and dying. So take a look at that, beautifuldyingexpo.com. Also, you can come to the show notes for this episode, eolupodcast.com, and this is episode number 195. I'll have a link to the Beautiful Dying Expo, also a link to a class I'm co-teaching with Terry Daniel for the University of Redlands and the Applied Wisdom Institute on spirituality and chronic illness, and that begins July 9th. So come to the show notes. The link is too long for me to... No, actually, the link is... I can say it here. It's a bit.ly link, a shortened link. So it's bit.ly/chronic illness course. And again, that'll be in the show notes. So you can go to eolupodcast.com and you'll find a link for that course. Finally, once again, I want to thank all of my supporters on patreon.com/EOLU. This is a site, if you're not familiar with it, where you can join our team and make a monthly donation that helps support the podcast and keep us on the air. And it means everything to me, to just having a little bit of financial support coming in, and also the emotional and spiritual support of knowing there are people out there listening who appreciate the content that I'm creating here. Other ways of showing your support are to just share the podcast, tell other people about it if you find it helpful to you. And also you can go on iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review there. And that's helpful as well. So remember, there'll be a new episode every Monday. Starting next Monday, I'll have a series of interviews for you to listen to now that the Mortal Wisdom series is over with. So tune in next week. I'll see you then again. And until we're together, remember, We're here for love, so face your fear, be ready for whatever life brings your way, and love your life, every single moment of it, right here, right now. Bye-bye.